24th of August 1853, that's the date on which potato crisps were produced for the first time. So Moorish, so irresistible, so crispy, so crunchy. Crisps were made for the first time 160 years ago in the United States, which is perhaps not surprising. And crisp legend has it that they were invented in Moon's restaurant in Saratoga. A millionaire customer came to the restaurant and he complained that his baked potato was too dry. And the complaint really annoyed the chef because he was very proud of his skills in the kitchen. His name was George Crumb, which to me seems quite appropriate. And so in response to the complaint, George Crumb cut the potato up into very, very small, thin slices, and then he fried the potato to the point where it was not quite burnt, but almost, and then he absolutely doused the potato with salt. He then returned the dish to the customer, thinking he was getting his revenge, and he had a look out the kitchen door to see what the response would be. But to his surprise, the customer was delighted with the deconstructed potato, and he polished off the lot. And so the people of Saratoga still enjoy the story of the invention of crisps, even if it is perhaps something of an urban legend. And apparently, the real inventor of the crisp was George Crumb's sister, Katie. She was making donuts, and she accidentally dropped a slice of potato into the hot oil. So she left it there for a while, and then when she eventually fished it out, the potato was very crispy. So her brother George tried it, loved it, cooked up a whole batch, and from then on, crisps were a regular feature on the menu at his restaurant. They were called Saratoga chips, and they quickly became something of a craze. And in Saratoga Springs, there's even a street named after George Crumb. So the residents of the town are proud of the Crumb's contribution to the culinary arts. And it seems that the only mistake that they made is that they didn't patent the invention. But we're blessed that didn't happen, because if it did, they might never have arrived to this side of the world. In fact, crisps didn't arrive in Europe until around 100 years after they were invented. It's thought that they were introduced to Europe by American GIs who were serving in Germany and elsewhere and had them shipped over. However, the potato, when it was shipped over, had a tendency to soften, so that obviously had an impact on the texture and the flavour of the crisps. So a German engineer called Flesner saw a gap in the market, and he took to the kitchen with his wife, and they tried to reproduce the chip or the crisp. So to do so, they tried lots of different types of potato, lots of different types of fat, and they did try to produce the crisp for the market of American soldiers, but they also had their eye on the German market as a whole. But it was a little bit slow to kick off, and the reason for that was supposedly because the Germans were more used to having sweet snacks and treats rather than salt and savoury. And so in 1968, a sugar company based in Cologne started experimenting with crisps on the basis, again, that the market was underdeveloped. They wanted to move crisps away from something that people have in the evening with a beer to being something that you could have as part of a meal, or something to have when you're on the move, if you're in the car or in between meetings at the office. So sticking with Germany, today the average German eats 1.5 kilos of crisps per year, and typically they'll eat them while watching TV or at parties, when they're inside, and when the weather is bad. So this is something that German crisp producers would like to change. And for some reason, Germans are far less likely than people in other countries to eat crisps outside or during the day. According to market research, people in France eat more crisps when the weather is better, and people even eat them at the beach. But the opposite applies in Germany. The worse the weather, the more crisp sales go up. And then there are other trends relating to crisps that you see in other countries. For example, in the UK, crisps can be eaten as a side dish almost. They can be used to replace other types of potato or rice or noodles. And another interesting thing about crisps is that different nationalities eat different flavours. So in Germany, the go-to variant is paprika. In the UK, it's vinegar. And the French like salt. Then the Americans go for pretty much everything, but especially barbecue. And in Japan, people often like to eat shrimp or wasabi flavoured crisps. And in other parts of the world, you can find octopus or beetroot soup flavoured crisps. But one thing that's the same everywhere in the world is that the method used to produce crisps is pretty straightforward and relatively inexpensive. You just wash the potatoes, they're then peeled, they're put through a cutting machine, and they're formed into small or medium thin circles. Then after that, they're fried, flavoured, and finally packaged up into bags. But it's a little bit more complicated to choose the right potato, so much so that in Germany, again, there's a scientific institute dedicated to that subject called the Institute of Starch and Potato Technology. And according to the institute, the preferred potato varieties for crisp making include Setona and Lady Rosetta, and around 400,000 tonnes of these varieties are processed each year into about 100,000 tonnes of crisps. So ordinary potatoes have up to 78% water content, but to achieve the perfect crispy crisp, the water content should be at about 1.5%. So that means that around 3.5 to 4 kilos of potatoes are needed to produce a single kilo of crisps. And then, of course, crisps also need a lot of fat. 100 grams of crisps contains about 35 grams of fat. So unsurprisingly, they're not seen as very healthy. But you can argue that they actually have some nutritional value, because if we compare a bag of crisps and an apple, there's actually more magnesium and more potassium in the crisps. They also contain the same amount of vitamin C, and crisps contain slightly more vitamin E. So that's something for you to bear in mind the next time you get a sudden craving for starch and salt. Thank you.